Declutter and the act of organization is such an emotional journey. Because of the TV shows and the books, we think it's some task we need to complete. And the opposite is true. It's a healing journey, and we need to make time. We have to slow down and make time for processing the big feelings, processing what we're trying to do with our stuff. I talk a lot about recurring clutter in my programs and the fact that if you have clutter that keeps showing up over and over again.
0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Thank you for listening to the show. Today's episode is one of my favorite, and I know I say it a lot, but really today's episode is one of my favorite because I learned so much about what our stuff means about us. And I also learned that our stuff does not represent who we are. I learned a lot about decluttering and how to deal with people that don't like to declutter, and what is it like to be compassionate and loving around decluttering toward yourself and others, and the deeper psychological meaning of letting go of stuff, and even the process of grieving stuff that were damaged or you can't use anymore, or letting go, because decluttering, sometimes our stuff gets intertwined with our identity. So how to separate your identity from your stuff, grieve the old stuff you don't need anymore, and allow yourself to let go so you have more freedom and be able to breathe better in your own home, without carrying all those emotions that are connected to your physical things. Star Hansen is a clutter whisperer and certified professional organizer. She helps successful people who feel like a hot mess to figure out why their clutter isn't going away, so they can finally clear the chaos and live a life of freedom, joy, and peace. She is the organizer you call when nothing else works. Star's best-selling book, Why the F Am I Still Not Organized, has inspired countless individuals to tackle their clutter head-on and find lasting solutions. What I love about her is that she takes a very different approach to decluttering, and she's almost like a psychology healer when it comes to decluttering, and she's overall a phenomenal human being. So enjoy the show. And by the way, if you are enjoying the show, please, it will help me a lot if you can take a moment to go and review, and maybe put a 5-star review on Apple, or any other platforms that are streaming the podcast, because that will help me spread the word. And please recommend the podcast to your friends. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me. Go to stellarlifepodcast.com and you can contact me, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to read your review. It will give me endless joy and fulfillment to actually connect to you in this way. And now, without further ado, on to the Decluttering Show. Hello, Star. Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I am mega excited to be talking to you.
Me too, Orion. Thank you so much for having me on. And I love that we both have star-like names. We're both like in the galaxy together.
Yes. We are from the same soul family, probably.
I agree.
Up there,
I feel
somewhere.
it. Yes.
Before we begin, can you share from your heart a bit about your journey, and how did you become the magnificent... I see you as a clutter healer psychologist that you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually was acting. I lived in LA and I had this intention to be an actor, and I was booking gigs right and left, and I just didn't love it. I'd come home from a day of shooting and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I remember sitting in my dining room and just kind of asking Spirit, like, what is my purpose? And their communication to me was always very clear. You're a healer. You're a healer. And that never changes, which is kind of nice because it reminds me that If the whole world went and got organized, I would still be a healer and I would find a new modality for that. And so while I was acting, we had this amazing administration group that basically helped you to get a job. Not just they're like, you can be a good actor all day long, but if you don't know how to get a job and be an enjoyable person to work with, it's not good. So they said, come up with 50 ways for you to make money without, working a side hustle. And so I came up with this tax organizing box for creatives who don't like to organize, but want their tax stuff easily organized. And I sold like 2 of them, but I had like 3 people who said, oh, wow, you're so organized. Can you help me with this? And this was early 2000s. Organizing was not what it is today. It was pre Marie Kondo. There was not the social conversation that there is the way that it is today. So I started doing trades with people for organization. And I didn't even know that this was a thing at the time. And so I thought I had kind of invented something. And thankfully I didn't, because I don't need or want to be a trailblazer in that way. And what was so amazing to me was that organizing is this very practical thing, this pragmatic, control based 3D thing that we have access to deep emotional healing. I don't know anyone who has a lot of clutter or who has patterns of recurring clutter who don't have some sort of soul growth through that process. And they don't always see it coming. And yet it's always there. And it's so beautiful to get to witness people come home to themselves through the process of organizing. And that's really what I view it to be, is helping people come home to themselves, like really find their own truth and find their own grounding within themselves through the physical clutter.
Yes, that's amazing. So yesterday was the solar eclipse, and we didn't know that, but apparently it's a good time to clutter. We have 2 storage units. We moved from LA to Miami. A lot of it got delayed for 6 months because we moved during COVID, and it was stored in the worst conditions. So a lot of like old things that are smelly and disgusting, and things that I used to love, and things that I kind of wanted to save, but it's like it's smelly and it's horrible, and we're letting go of it and letting go of it. But man, it's been emotional. Like some of the things that I let go and I did not want to let go. It's been emotional.
Yeah, it hurts a lot when we have things in storage and it's not in our control, or it's not in our conscious control. I feel like it's interesting when we can tap into our soul path and the universe's higher wisdom of, okay, you've removed these things from my life for a purpose. What are you making space for?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's a good narrative to just say thank you for the invitation and to open. It's funny, I've moved more more times than I would like to admit. And most of the time that I move, I get rid of most of the things that I own. And it's a lot. It pushes you to the next level to kind of say, how do I make space for who I am today, who I want to be tomorrow, the blessings that I want to receive? And it's so powerful to make space in our lives and make space consciously. And it does feel like such a violation when our items get injured or damaged, when someone else purges things for us. It is absolutely a violation that needs to be grieved the way that we would grieve any other violation in our lives.
Oh, thank you. Because I was like, what? My self talk was like, what are you doing? Why? It's just things. It's just things. Because usually I have a really easy time getting rid of clutter compared to my husband, who's the exact same opposite. And we have some, we get in conflict around it. He's getting better, but there is something in him. And I think something with his family too, that like hoarding and keeping stuff and keeping old stuff. I think he feels like if he's gonna get rid of those, like he's got boxes and boxes of old journals and seminars and things from his, like things that are not valuable anymore, or he will probably will never touch again. But he's doing a lot of progress, but he's still having a hard time getting rid of stuff. What will be your advice from me for him?
Clutter in the act of organization is such an emotional journey. And we, because of the TV shows and the books, we think it's some task we need to complete. And the opposite is true. It's a healing journey, and we need to make time. We have to slow down and make time for processing the big feelings, processing what we're trying to do with our stuff. I talk a lot about recurring clutter in my programs, and the fact that if you have clutter that keeps showing up over and over again, and often if it's in the same places with the same objects, those items are doing something for you. Now, it could be doing a lot of things. It could be communicating for you. When we leave something on our counter as a hint to our partner, it can be to experience a sense of security. For a lot of people who grew up in financial scarcity and lack, or, we look at people who grew up during the Great Depression, and if they didn't have their needs met, it's normal to want to hold on to things for a sense of security. You see that with a lot of people who immigrated from another country and lost everything. And the need to hold on to things is security. We use it for protection. I have a lot of people who don't want to have others come over to their home, and the clutter is a great excuse for that. We might use clutter so that people can't find things we value, right? I have clients who, they had a break in. And so having their house in a chaotic state makes them feel empowered that maybe no one's going to find their valuables if they break in. I've seen people use clutter for connection to loved ones who have passed away and wanting to hold on to things to stay connected to them, or even stay connected to former versions of ourselves. There are just so many ways. And then there's also creativity. We use clutter to hold on to creative ideas like, but I want to do that. This inspires me in some way. And if I hold on to this thing, I'm more likely to do it. So there's some really beautiful ways that we are using clutter. And when we can start to see how we're using it, that really opens up the whole process of organization and gives us a new lease on our lives, because we can now create that change in a more mindful way without the clutter. And that's when the clutter can really fall away.
Hmm. So my husband's getting better, not because I'm kind and gentle and loving and understanding the way you are, just because I'm like, let's get rid of it. I can't have it anymore. This is it. You know,
Get it out of here.
I
Totally.
can't see this. And then also, like, the boxes, they smell, and I'm allergic to that mildew's dusty smell. I'm just like, I've been coughing and tissues and stuff. So it makes me it makes me in my body stressed out when I see all those boxes. For me, I feel like all those boxes are sitting on my chest. So what does that say about me, and how can I handle that?
Well, I will say I also am very sensitive to mold and mildew. I mean, it's for me, it's because I lived in a house once that had mold. And then I also, through my career, when I first started my business, I didn't know simple things like wear a mask when you're in a house with mold. Things like I didn't want to shame my clients because I didn't want to make them feel bad. But meanwhile, I mean, I remember there was one session where my assistant and I both almost passed out at the same time during this client. Yeah, because there was mold in the house. And so I take it very seriously. It makes perfect sense that you don't want to expose yourself. Definitely be willing to wear a mask. I would like change clothes. Like I would have like an outfit, like scrubs that I would wear when I was working in situations that were highly moldy. It's totally reasonable to protect yourself from that. And it's hard, I think, it's really difficult with our loved ones because if they have clutter that makes us uncomfortable, it's very normal for a lot of people to want to just say, oh, it's so easy. Just get rid of it. What's going on? Do it faster.
No,
And
it
often
sounds like
all that
me.
does, you're
My
like,
poor
you heard me.
husband.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
just like, yeah,
and
let's get rid of it. Come on, this is
yeah,
like,
well, and it's because
why
in
are
your
we?
mind,
Why,
it
why
is
are you
easy.
looking at every paper for 10
Yeah.
minutes? We have like boxes to go through.
When you get impatient with him, and not just you, but everyone who has clutter, when we get impatient with our cluttered friends, it actually makes them hold on tighter and go slower. They feel less safe. They kind of like hold on to more things. If you really want to support them in their process,
I need to be more loving.
well, and be curious. It's like, and you can also say to him, I'm really having a hard time because we come at this from very different places. I want to understand what clutter is to you. Like, what is clutter could be a triggering word. Like, I want to understand why it's important for you to take your time when you go through the things. Tell me about your process. Like, and a great question to ask someone when they've been organizing is, did you find anything today that delighted you or surprised you or was interesting to you today? Start to find a way to be curious and interested in their process.
I found some really delightful things. I forgot I had like my like a teapot that I got in Japan a very long time ago, and like little things, and in you see, with all the drama, I'm opening some of the boxes, and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I found this and I found that, and he shows up, and he's like, oh, I heard you screaming for joy. What's going on? I was like, oh, I found this and this and this, and I'm so excited. And then I look and I was like, oh my god, I have so much stuff. Then I'm like, those are good things. Why would I get rid of them? This is, I guess it's hard for me too.
It's hard for most people. I mean, it feels wasteful to just get rid of things. It feels wasteful when things get ruined. It is having moved many times. It does feel challenging and stressful when you're like, oh, now I have to buy things post COVID and everything is triple the price of what it was before. Why didn't I just keep it? It's just, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to slow down and make time to process those feelings. But what we often do is like what you were just describing. When you have those feelings, we say, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this faster? What's my problem? I should be through this already. And we say that to our loved ones, like, oh, why are you still working on this? I can't believe it's not gone yet. All that does is invalidate your process. Like the truth is asking yourself, like, okay, what's really going on here? And holding space for that is way more valuable because I will tell you this, if you have unresolved issues, journeys, lessons in your clutter and you ignore them, they're just going to reappear again. So you'll manifest it one more time to get those lessons because our subconscious is so resilient. So take your time. It's better to figure it out with this round than it is to like reclutter your house and have to do it again in 6 years.
That's incredible. What a phenomenal advice. I'm like, you showed up for me this interview at the right time and the right, like, this is like the most perfect time in my life. And I'm sure everybody's listening to it right now. This is the perfect episode for you.
Oh, I'm
No,
so
today
glad.
it's so cool. It's so much deeper. It's so much
Yeah.
deeper, and it's such a reflection on your life and a relationship. I just want to mention your TED talk that I've been listening to, and I was just like, you were saying some things, and I was listening in the car. I'm like, oh, I should have quoted that in the podcast, and I should have quoted that because they're like quotables. Like, I remembered only one thing. Let me see my notes. Clutter is an invitation to heal. That was one of the mic drop sentences, and it kept coming. Like there were so many good sentences there. So I recommend everybody to go and watch it, and we're going to link it in the show note. Do you remember the name of your TED Talk?
Listen to the monster in your closet.
Yes. Oh, what a great title. Making friends with
Thank
those
you.
monsters. And the monster in your
Yes.
closet is actually the monster in your heart, the one you try to avoid, the one you don't want to look at. Those, like, all traumas, all the limiting beliefs that are reflected either in your clutter or in different areas in your life. But clutter, you said in that TED Talk that you can go to people's homes and you learn so much about them. Can you share something about that?
Yeah. I say in the talk, I can walk into your home and know with a glance the state of your life based on where your clutter is and what your clutter is.
I don't know if I want to invite you. It feels very, very, very vulnerable. I want you to come to my house whenever you're in Miami. Please come. Let's have coffee and talk about whatever.
I would love that. I mean, I am the least judgmental person. It's funny. When I first started organizing, I would walk into someone's house and they'd say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about the clutter. And I would say, oh my gosh, I didn't even see it. Look at the color of your walls. Or, wow, what beautiful choice of furniture you have in here. So when I walk into your home, I don't actually see the clutter because I have this natural assumption that I will know how to solve the clutter with you. That's never the problem. I don't need you to send me pictures in advance. I don't need you to break it down for me. Like that will get solved because I'm doing an energetic healing of your physical space through this journey together. But what I see when I walk in is your highest self. I see who you really are. So when I walk into your house, you're complaining and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about these piles and stacks. And I track them, but I don't notice them because I'm too busy taking you in and you're like the incredible human that you are. So it's funny how and it's not something that I try to do. It's just something that I've always done is just to take in the person more than the physical spaces because our physical spaces are simply out picturing of our internal world. And I'm much more interested in who you are at your soul level and your core level than your physical space, because that's going to change as you change and evolve and grow.
Mm, I love it. What was the worst house you dealt with, clutter wise, and what was the healing that happened around it?
I mean, I think everyone feels like their home is the worst. I think that's it's hard for me as a professional to say what was hardest for me because I don't find the physical spaces.
Always the most work, let's say.
Well, it's funny. I find so the most work for me is working with someone who doesn't want to make the journey. It's not about the spaces. There's no amount of clutter that scares me or freaks me out. I've gotten much more clear as I've developed my career that of who I work with and who I don't serve. And because if someone hires me and they want me to come and do it for them, even if even if they hear I always tell people, I don't do this for you, I do it with you. This is a healing journey. I am not There's tons of organizers who will come to your house and do this for you when you're at work. I am absolutely not that. And when someone hears that and they still want me to come and do it for them, that's the hardest for me because they're not actually here to do the job that I'm here to do. They want it done for them. And the stuff is so secondary to me. And so that's actually more challenging. Someone who's not really ready for the journey and still wants to hire me. That's harder for me than any physical space could be. Yeah. Cause then we end up like battling, they're like, but why didn't you do this in a more beautiful way? And I'm like, cause that's not what I'm about. I'm about making sure that you're healing through your physical spaces. That's what I'm here for.
Nice. Do you do feng shui as well, or do you?
Not really. I mean, so I've hired feng shui people for my house and I do enjoy it. I really do. Unless I'm in a bad house. Unless I'm in a house that's like a borderline house or something. And then I'm like, it's too stressful. I've already committed. But no, I have had moments though. So what really has happened is that through the process of working with people, I've seen patterns. And some of those patterns do line up with some of the philosophies of feng shui, but I haven't studied feng shui. I think it's a beautiful practice. I will kind of go and explore a little bit, but it's not something that I think I'd ever get certified in because I don't want there to be a rule that I have to follow. This room is for family and friends that are helpful. This room is for, I want it to be what I notice is where feng shui says this is where that area is for you in this home. I pay attention to the evidence. So if I see all your nourishment is actually being held in your office or in your primary bedroom, I'm paying attention to that. I'm tracking that for you. And what I want to do is help you create a nest that really serves and supports you. And anything that's like a red flag asking for love and attention, I want to help you get that love and attention also.
Yes. So I guess my little one, I have a 4-year-old, was watching my husband and I decluttering, and this morning he said, "I want to give away all my broken toys," but then he added, "so we can buy new toys."
Oh, he's making space.
He's making space. So how can I communicate that these values and actually have a um some kind of a healing journey for my little one? How do you do it with kids, with little kids?
Yeah. It's so interesting because kids are little sponges. They are taking in all sorts of things. And so, depending on who they're spending time with and the values of their friends, and living in LA, as you know, you'd have someone who's living, in a tiny apartment going to school with someone who lives in a mansion in Bel Air. And that's a lot for kids to process. It's a lot for them to kind of understand, like, wait, why did they have this, this, and this? And why do I only have this? And I think it's really important to instill values into the kids about life being more important than stuff. And it's hard because in our consumerist society, it's, oh, they're unhappy, buy them something. Oh, it's the holidays, buy them something. And what would it look like to start shifting that? And instead of buying things, to start investing in experiences or creating things together and shifting the paradigm from what you have to who you are, the time you spend, the relationships you continue to foster and engage in. And so I think part of it is just like the kids will do whatever you do. And so like if you if you want your kids to eat salad every day, if you're eating salad every day, eventually they're going to jump in there with, they might complain about it and be whiny about it. But the truth is that whatever's normal for you becomes normal for them. So I think part of it too is you guys can even communicate. There's a lot of stuff that we have that has gotten ruined and it's making us want less stuff. So we can let go of some things, but like starting to give them a lens, like, What are the most important toys? Like, because the truth is, if you look at Pareto's principle, which is the 80-20 rule, we use 20% of our items 80% of the time. So why do we have so much stuff when we're using the same? I mean, I wear the same things over and over again. We use the same toys over and over again, so it's like maybe even just letting him know, like, okay, there's this new thing that I learned. It's this, we're going to play this game. It's called, I don't know, 8-2, because kids, I think 8 and 2 or 10 is easier to count to. For every, find your 2 favorite things out of these 10 items. Okay, now find your next 2 favorite things out of these 10 items. And literally starting to help them understand the priority of things, the values of things, and that if they have too much, like if everything is important, nothing is important.
That is important. Yes.
Yeah. So the less we have, the more we can give ourselves to the items that we do keep.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Thank you. I'll do this with him. It sounds amazing. We have clutter everywhere. I think most people have clutter somewhere in their home. How do we self-analyze if we don't have you to help us and kind of like channel for us? This is what it means toward you, and go find your inner wound. How can we be the detective and take a deeper meaning into our own clutter? What is the process to do that?
Yeah, after I did the TEDx talk, I was like, I need to give these tools to people because I don't want to be some magical oracle who like has the answers and no one else can have them. So I wrote a book called Why the F Am I Still Not Organized? And your listeners can download it, they can, I don't know, they can listen to it on Audible, it's on Amazon, but you can also download a free copy at starhansen.com/podcast. And that's HANSEN. And, what I put in there is I put in how to diagnose your spaces, what the different rooms mean, how your physical objects are trying to help you, what they're doing. I included the 10 steps for how to get organized, like the most pragmatic lessons that I teach on organization. So that book is literally the like brain dump and of all the tools that I have used with people to get them organized. So that is like your one-stop shop for how you get organized with my philosophy and my experience of what I've learned.
Nice. Can we go over the 10 steps?
Yes. Oh, it's so funny. People want to do that sometimes on podcasts. I'm like, but there's so many of them. So
Can we go over whatever, however many steps you think are important right now?
yeah. So what I will say high level about the 10 steps is that most people are already on the right track with organization. Most of us have just not been taught how to organize. And often we're doing a lot of the 10 steps without knowing it. But we're sometimes skipping one or missing one or jumping ahead 3 steps on accident. So know that know that you know. And if your listeners want to download them, they can go to organizingiseasy.com and that will let you download the 10 steps. But the 10 steps start with setting intention. So that's you asking yourself, okay, 3 questions. What do I want to do in this space? And I always say keep it to like 3 to 5 things that you want to do in any given space. How do I want the space to look and how do I want the space to feel? So once you've set the intention, that's your roadmap. I always say, I have, when you download that, you'll get like a printout. You can fill it out for each room, hang it up on the wall, and that will help align you to what stays and what goes. Once you've set your intention for that room, and again, we're working space by space. We don't want to go and take on the whole house at once. That's too stressful. We just want to work on one small space. And I always say, start easy. You don't want to start with the hardest thing. We have a lot of experience feeling like I've got to organize my whole garage this weekend, and then it doesn't happen, and then we beat ourselves up. So start very small. You're learning. You're basically, this is your training wheels. It's your, your curls at the gym. It's you strengthening the organizing skills. So start small. And I can give you, I don't always say like start with small projects that could take you 20 minutes or less, ideally. So once you've set the intention for this room, you want to gather your tools, make sure you have everything that you're going to need, trash bags, Sharpies, label maker, Post-its, whatever you need, because the last thing you want is to get distracted running around looking for supplies when you need them while you're organizing. So you're going to collect all the tools. And then you're going to deconstruct. And the way that I describe deconstruction is you're going to take everything out of the space that you're working on, put it into a neutral space, and look at it like you're looking at someone else's stuff. Because if you're seeing it for yourself, you're like emotional about everything. Oh, but this is so important and I love this and I need this. Like, no, this is your friend and you don't know what any of this stuff means. And you just kind of like let yourself go blank about it. Pull everything out and categorize it. High level categories, paperwork, clothing, books, shoes, whatever it is, high level. Don't make any decisions when you're deconstructing. Once you pulled everything out and it's all been created into categories, then you're going to go back through and you're going to look at each category and you're going to make the decision. Am I going to keep this or let it go? Keep this or let it go. And then once you've gone through all of those categories, then you're going to take the things, it's like, then you let go of the stuff that you don't want. You clean the space so that they can go back in there. You create categories, you create those solutions, you put them back in. You beautify it, you make it look lovely. Then you're going to go and you're going to set up some sort of maintenance plan. And then you celebrate just being the amazing human you are that just did a really hard thing. And the way that I share it is, go small, do something you can finish that day. Like again, we're strengthening a muscle, and be really gentle with yourself. This is a journey. It does not happen overnight. You didn't get cluttered overnight. It's not going to get solved overnight. And these 10 steps will really guide you. The biggest pitfalls that I think most people do is when they're in the deconstruct phase where they're creating categories and they're thinking to themselves, how am I going to get this all back in there? I don't know where this is going to go. Well, that's, my friend, that's 4 steps ahead of you. That's not where you're at right now. Right now, just create categories. And then next, you're going to make decisions. You don't have to think about where it's going to go again. There is a step for that, and you will solve that. And when it's time, you will find the answer. But we always are like 1 foot ahead, trying to like protect ourselves and think of what we're going to need to solve in the future. I promise you, the things that we worry about most are the things that never happen. The crises in our lives are things that we often do not predict. We don't know that they're coming. And in the moment, you will solve them. You will figure out what to do, and you will have the insights that you need to solve those problems when they show up.
Yeah, I like it. I think I do it naturally with those steps.
Most people do. It's my job when I'm doing my job, right? People don't say, oh my God, I never thought of that. They're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh, I'm totally doing that, because it's not brain surgery, right? But what it is like, we get a little lost. We second guess ourselves. We get uncertain. And the truth is, you actually know a lot of what you're doing. You might be missing 1 or 2 here or there. You might forget it. Like I always forget the part about like letting go. I hate taking things to like donations. Like I just will stare. And so I make myself do it quickly because I'm like, ugh, this is my least favorite part of it. So we all have something we don't like, and that we have to kind of push ourselves a little bit on.
Right. I mean, I used to think about myself as a very non-organized person, but the more time goes by, I have more evidence that I'm actually pretty organized and more than most. It's just, I think, an identity shift, or just the way you see yourself.
Well, and yeah, it's like, when did which version of ourselves did we identify with? You might be identifying with yourself when you were in school, when you didn't need to be organized because other humans were managing your schedule. And now you manage the schedule. To be an entrepreneur requires organization. To have a podcast requires organization. To have a child requires organization. You cannot be organized all you want, but you're going to do it for your kid. It's like they have lunch that needs to be made and they need to go to bed at a certain time. So I think sometimes we get the gifts of parenthood or entrepreneurship to help us solidify those lessons of organization and strategy for ourselves, which can be so beautiful because those strengths then cascade and affect every area of our life in a really positive way.
Right. I want to ask you more of a personal question, but I think it's going to help a lot of people. So the items I brought from the storage unit, we bring it to our garage, we sort it through, and then my husband goes and bring more boxes, sort it through, because it's just uncomfortable doing that in the storage unit. So I guess some of them are moldy, but can can the mold spread to the rest of the house? How do we protect our house? Sometimes and also I have like a bunch of like my old pole dancing stuff and lingerie and shoes that they're in great shape. They smelled like hell. I soaked them with borax and baking soda and vinegar oil for 8 hours. The smell went from level 10 to level 3. And what I think to do is just to soak them again for 8 hours just to get rid of everything. Am I doing the right thing? Should I just toss them? They start smelling really okay. But I also just I let go of so many boxes with so many like bed sheets and stuff and like just a lot of it. So I need advice around that.
Yeah, I don't mess with mold myself. I just because of my own experience. It's so think about this. If it's organic, it can, mold can grow on it. And there are ways like I've worked at people's homes where we've just had to bleach things. And I'm more of a natural person, so I don't really prefer going hardcore like that. But, it's what you have to do is remove the moisture from the air, remove the moisture from those things. But I mean, it can still live there. Those mold spores can still be living there. And, and yes, they are absolutely airborne. So when you crack open that box, they're in the air. I highly recommend wearing a mask when you're working with stuff that has mold on it or mildew on it. And making sure that you're safe because those can also go into your lungs and grow in your lungs and nobody wants that. So really taking the time to protect yourself and doing a little bit of you're so good about doing your own research. Like I feel like you become an expert in so many things because you do so much research and taking the time to figure out what are the options and what really feels right for you and your family. Like personally, I would make sure that everything is like squeaky clean if it's going to come in the house. And don't be afraid to let go of things. You also live in a moist environment. You live in an area that has high humidity and mold, I would imagine, is in a lot of homes already. And so, but I don't, it's one of the things that I'm just real, even in my contract, like when I am hiring like an assistant to work with me on a job, my instructions are clear. If you see mold, you do not touch it. Like you literally, you come and get me, you do not touch it because the minute you move it, it's now airborne and now it's flying around. So it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know. So it's, I mean, I would be very mindful about, okay, this is a metal pole. I can clean it off. It will not, it's not going to grow there, but your shoes, if they're leather, it might continue growing there. It may not be resolved easily. So just kind of doing a little research, but it just because it is one thing that affects our health. And I don't prefer how that feels to be in your body.
Yes. So, do you think an ozone treatment for the house is necessary? Because obviously, we carried something from the garage to the house. It's impossible not to. It stuck to our clothes. Some things were brought in, even like papers and stuff. I'm sure it's like ruminating in the air. So, how do we treat the house now? Do we ozonate everything? We take a supplement. Like, what do we? How do we deal with this?
It's so above my pay grade to answer that question. I would definitely, it's because it's so personal. There are people who will listen to what I'm saying and they'll be like, that girl is full of it. There's nothing wrong with it. Mold is organic. It's part of our natural world. There's nothing wrong with it. Someone else will be like, burn everything, but really like I would personally, if it was me, like take a little time to research and see, like I'd even call some mold remediation companies and say, look, we brought some stuff in from storage, we didn't really know, do you think that should we, because they can also come out and do a test for you for a couple $100 and find out, do you have high levels of mold spores in the house and is it something you should be concerned about?
Right. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I agree. I actually interviewed Dave Asprey here, and we talked about the dangers of mold exposure. And I was exposed to black mold and was sick for 3 weeks. And now I have to deal with this. Like I need to declutter, but then it comes to my house, and I'm worried about a lot of things. Too much worry. I need to let go of all the worry and just believe that everything's gonna work out. And just the way you showed up in this podcast at the right time, in the right place, everything's going to work out, because most of the fears that we have in life, 90% of them, I think 96% of them, never ever come true. And if they come, and the rest, if it come through, it's even not half as bad as we thought it will be. I'm going to infuse all this with a little bit more faith in God.
Yes. Well, and kind of sending the prayer out to the universe of please show me what to focus on because it's too easy to get into the compulsion of like I've got to clean everything to the nth of it to the nth degree and you don't like just be like creator show me what I need to be focused on next, like what is important for me to, because the truth is like I don't know, you could sorry, this is horrible. You could go out to the grocery store, brush shoulders with someone who has bed bugs at their house or who just came back from Paris and literally bring them into your home. And now you have bed bugs in your home from a simple brushing of an arm, right? So it's like crazy, uncomfortable, negative things can happen all the time and all the time. And most of the time we're fine. Yeah, like most of the time we're fine. So just be like, okay, because creator might say to you, give all of your clothes a deep clean. And then you do and you don't know why you're being asked to do that, but you do the deep clean or you like, oh, okay, I need to like get a HEPA air filter. trust the guidance that you were given, because yeah, it's too hard to know all the invisible chaos that might be like swimming around us. And you don't need that kind of chaos in your life on top of being a mom, an entrepreneur, a wife,
A human
and
being.
organizing a human doing your life. Yes,
Human being
exactly.
living, breathing. Like, that's enough. That's just be a human
In
being. That's enough.
2024. Yes, it's yeah, we're all done. Our bingo card is full for the year. We'd like to start fresh now. Yeah.
Right, right. Where do you donate stuff to? So I have a company that I called. It's a for-profit one, but they do work with veterans and charity organization. And they're gonna come and they're gonna pick up all my stuff from the driveway, which I thought was much easier. I mean, there are some stuff I can sell. I can make maybe like, $1,000 out of it, or a few, if you, I don't, there are some good stuff there that I gave away a lot of electronics that are very valuable. Um, but then like I have a whole box of Tony Robbins DVDs, stuff that are, they're hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars. And I didn't want to give it to donation. I'm going to post it in a group and see if somebody actually wants to learn this stuff, because it's so valuable and it can just go somewhere and nobody can ever pick it up. So some advice about where to donate and how to do it.
A high level, high level, and I'm going to dial into this more. But if you are really struggling to get organized, I often say find one location to donate things and do not give yourself options, because it is a Herculean effort to choose to get rid of things and do the organizational process to then figure out the perfect home for each item can be so overwhelming and stops us. So for sure, I say, if you are really struggling high level, just pick a place, and the place to choose is the one that aligns most with your values. Like I know people who are vehemently anti Salvation Army or anti Goodwill or whatever. So find the place that works for you. And then yeah, like you really have to weigh out what is the most important thing to you. So for some people, earning a little extra money is the most important thing to them. So listing it on Facebook Marketplace, listing it on Craigslist, doing a yard sale, that is highly important for them because that money is so valuable. They're willing to invest their time to get the payback. And if that's where you are, great. Like I'm in the middle of a move right now and I listed things on Marketplace. Like I specifically listed like my furniture items that I had. I will tell you, I feel like a chunk of my soul got removed during the week of sale because I live in a city that's a little flaky. And so I've never lived in a city where so many people would be like, I'll be there at noon. And then they just never show up. Oh my gosh, I need it. Can you hold it for me? And then they get there and they're like, will you take $20 instead of $100? I've never been in a city like this. I know. I was like, no, no. So I feel like they like left with a chunk of my heart.
Oh, I'm sorry. Take it back. Do some soul retrieval. Just and just like take all those sparks from those people, cut cords, and say like, "What's yours, yours. What's mine, mine." I take all my energy back and claim your energy back.
Yes, I know. I'm a theta healer too. So I'm like, I have got to like reclaim the energy.
Oh, that's theta healing. I didn't know that.
Oh, oh yeah. Well, I think it's a lot of people, but like reclaiming soul fragments is a part of theta healing also, and cutting. But I think a lot of us, it's all the forms of healing.
I've done it so many times. It's really helpful.
It is. It really is. So it's, so I don't know. So for me, that was like, I feel tired now. And I've never had that experience with Facebook Marketplace before where I'm like, I'm exhausted. No one else asked me for a discount. But that's because I'm doing about 300 things at one time. So my energy and bandwidth, like at a certain point, I just stopped selling things because I was like, energetically, it's costing me more than it's earning me. And I can't. So I sold the important things and just donated the other things. And what helped me is I met a friend who was in transition and she needed to set up her life. And so I have basically given her almost everything that I'm donating. And it makes me feel so much more joyful about letting things go because I know that it's going to someone who we share values.
To a good home.
Yeah, like I'm watching her and her kids get set up and they like all these tiny little things like a broom or cleaning. Yeah, like it feels so good because I'm like, oh, like for me, that would have had to go to the garbage. But instead, like it's going to someone who's going to use it and who, so going to your free groups and saying, hey, I'm donating some stuff and I'm leaving it outside and you're welcome to it, or posting pictures, that can be great. One thing that I will say about donations, if you wouldn't buy it in a thrift store, don't donate it. Like if you have something that's like a t-shirt that has tons of holes in it, or things that are like really in bad shape, or things that you like old panties that, like nobody's going to want those. Like it's okay to throw them away. That's what they're going to do anyways. And you're now skipping, right? And then there's a company called Take Back Bag that you can actually like, go online and you can actually, they'll send you a bag and you can mail all these textiles back to them to be recycled. And so that can be really helpful too.
By the way, most of our recycling, like 96% or 97% of our recycling, never end up being recycled.
Never. Oh, totally. It's like ever. Yeah.
It's just like something that makes us feel good. I still sort out the recycling and stuff like that. But even though I know it's probably gonna go to garbage anyways.
I know. And that's the thing that I feel like is like so on the not on the consumer's shoulders. It really should be on the shoulders of the people who are creating the products and the food and all of that, because for hundreds of years we did just fine without these plastic consumptive
Yeah,
things. So it's like
that's another podcast for another day.
I know that's like a whole thing.
And I've done something to like what you're saying. The way I did it is that we had some, like a green screen and a juicer, a toaster, like things that are in really good shape that I felt like, I don't know, this is a for-profit company. I don't know if I want to just give it away. So the way we did it, we took everything out to the curb on pickup day, which is today, by the way. And then this morning I went back and I just took a few of the most important things, like the most expensive things, the electronics. I put them back in the garage, and my cleaner came and I was like, "Hey, do you want one of those items?" She wanted all of them, and I'm like, "Yes, good. It's going to a good home." And then I have a few more items, just a few that are going to be easy to give away. So I'm not weighing myself down with trying to sell all those things. If I needed to, of course, I would do it.
Yeah. Or find the perfect home for them.
But I resonate with what you said about, yeah, it's going to a good home.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, again, a lot of times we just think we should just like know how to do all this stuff, right? When we're talking about the 10 steps, I have a 10 steps class, and one of the modules is literally just you filling out this handout, figuring out, okay, where do I donate technology in my city? Where do I take old building materials in my city? Where do I take, textiles in my city? Where like naming all of those things so that when you go like separate from the organizing process, because when you go to organize, you're tired, you're dirty, you want to be done, your kid's screaming at you for food, you don't have the energy. So you're just kind of like what most of us do. We just shove it in the garage.
Your kid's screaming at you, period.
Exactly. In your period. Yeah, exactly. It's too many things going on. And like, so we shove our donations by the door, in the car, in our garage, and then we forget about them. And then they blend with other things. And then we can't remember what's a donation and what's not a donation. So now we have a new organizing project. And so what you want to do is just like, know in advance before you start your organizing process where those things are going to go, so that you know that it's like, okay, great, this goes to Habitat, they're 30 minutes away, this is going to go to Goodwill, or this is going to go to Martha, she'll be here tomorrow, whatever it is, so that you don't have to think about it when you're tired after organizing, and you already know this is where that goes and you have that clear intention.
Organizing is very tiring. And on top of that, there is all the organizing of our million to-do lists. And you, in your TED talk, you mentioned something. Think about a place at your home that has clutter, and then what it means to you. And I thought about and how long have you had that for? A week, 2 weeks, a year, 2 years? So luckily it's not been more than 2 weeks, but I have a lot of bills to pay on my desk. And I haven't touched that, and I'm like, what's that, what's that about? Why am I holding back from refusing to pay those medical bills? Is there a part of me that thinks it's, I don't know. I have to like do my own self analyzing to think about what's my relationship with those bills and how does that reflect on my relationship with money, for example. And I can actually go and do a process with myself and go deeper and get the answer, which can be phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think that's where the book will really help, because it'll give you those insights to help you kind of unpack it for yourself. It's, when it comes to our paperwork and productivity, I always tell people, whenever you're getting organized, don't start with paper. like, it's everybody's like, but the paper's the biggest issue. I just want to start there. And I'm like, yeah, but you could spend 3 hours on 2 inches of paperwork and it'll look the same. Yeah. Like it's and you feel like you didn't do anything when really you did like mind numbing, intense organizing, so it's one of those things where I'm like, get a couple wins under your belt first. But when it comes to paperwork, a lot of times it's so big. It's a big conversation because like you're saying, it's tied into money. It's tied into our physical health. It's tied into fear. Like I have clients who have had periods of times of not wanting to open their mail because they might get a medical bill that is $20,000.
Yeah, I had that when I was younger. Sure.
Yeah, it's scary, and that affects you. It becomes like, something that hurts, and so you're like, well, I don't want to go in that again. And especially when there's nothing you can do about it. Like if the insurance can't be negotiated with and you don't have the money, it puts you in this place of like, I can't even find a solution, so I'm just not going to face it. And that creates this like kind of like boil that's growing for us under the skin that hurts us because it's scary versus.
That sounded awful.
Oh, it is awful. Oh,
It's
it's
like, you're
horrible.
like,
People don't enjoy
that
this. Yeah.
metaphor was
It's
very
like
strong.
very strong. I know. Sorry.
No, no,
It's like, but it is like, but when it comes to our money, people get very like visceral with it. When it comes to our medical bills and things, people are very visceral with it. It's no small thing. And so even sometimes just saying like, create a box of like, things I cannot deal with yet and shove it in there. Like, and I know that sounds crazy and probably no other organizer on the planet is going to tell you to do that, but take it and shove it, literally make a box of horrible things I'm not ready to face. Label all four sides of that box, make sure it has a lid on it, shove it in there because you're already not handling it. But what I want is for it to not,
I love it. I love it.
yeah, it's that way. It doesn't like kind of, toxify the rest of your house. And because there's going to be a moment where you have to handle it. And when you go to handle it, right where it is and it's in there and it's uncomfortable, but it's not at least like toxifying the rest of your home and making the rest of your home feel unbearable to you. And you just know, I have this one box, and then you deal with it, maybe with the help of a friend or a colleague or an organizer or a, tax accountant or whatever it is, to be like, I am feeling, or your therapist. I always say, take these things that are hard to deal with to your therapist. Take that box to your therapist and be like, I am avoiding this at all costs. I'm terrified. Can you help me process it? And it doesn't mean go through the paperwork with them, but help process why it's so difficult and up with some solutions.
Star, I think you're a star. I love how you
Oh,
I love how you see things in such a beautiful, healing, wholesome way, and how you think out of the box. This is probably the best approach to organizing and the deepest I've ever heard in my life. I mean, they're all good. It's good to get rid of things, but like the way, personalizing it and looking at from such a beautiful heart level and from that place of compassion, and actually it is so, for me it was an eye-opening, from your TED Talk and through this podcast. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
thank you for having me. It's been so enjoyable to talk to you. And thank you for sharing your personal experience because it is so vulnerable to share that.
I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like my listeners, know about my life more than most people. Probably. If you want to know everything about me, please listen to my podcast. If you even care about to know, and just listen. Anywho, what are your three top tips to living a stellar life, and where can people find you?
Watch sunrises and sunsets as often as possible. Look at your stuff with curiosity, not judgment. And do not wait to live your life until you're completely organized. Just go out and live your life right now, imperfect home and all. And people can find me at starhansen.com/podcast. They can download a copy of my book for free on there. You can also take my Listen to the Monster in Your Closet quiz and find out what monster is hiding in your closet, keeping you disorganized. And you can also learn about my Chaos to Calm organizing community if you want a safe space to help organize your entire home and life.
So good, so good. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Thank you for being a light in the world. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Me as well. Thank you, Orion. It's such a treat to be here with you today. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to watch sunsets and sunrises, and to make peace with your clutter, and come from a place of compassion and live your life right now because every moment matter. And now is the time to be happy, joyful, satisfied, and see your life from a brighter, more loving perspective. Have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.